Welcome to Ask Psych Sessions, where we ask some of the best teachers we know questions from you, our audience. If you would like to submit a question, please go to bit.ly/AskPsychSessions. That's bit.ly/AskPsychSessions. All lowercase, all one word. And here's our next question. We had such a positive response to our mini-series on online teaching a few months back that we wanted to follow up with a series of what it was like to go online or to do remote teaching for people who had never done it before. Marianne Lloyd had this great idea, and we thought it was worth pursuing. So, special thanks to Marianne, who went and found 6 of the best teachers we know to see what this transition was like for them. And this will be brought to you over 3 weeks, 6 episodes, 6 interviews. Here we go. Enjoy Ask Psych Sessions with Marianne Lloyd.
Thanks for joining us today in Ask Psych Sessions, where we're continuing our conversation with people for whom the shift to online and distance learning was a first-time experience this semester. Today's guest is a graduate student at the University of Pittsburgh. So thank you so much for joining us today, Gabriella Terrazas. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing well. It's great to get a chance to chat, especially with graduate students, to remind me of what my life was like more than a few years ago now. So maybe you can let the listeners know when this started. What were your teaching responsibilities? And right now, if you have any, just sort of give us a picture who you're teaching, how many people there are, that sort of stuff.
Sure. So for the spring semester, I was a TA. So when the pandemic was starting and classes moved online, I was TAing for research methods. The class was about 120 students. And right now I just started the summer semester, and I'm the instructor, teaching cognitive psychology, and I have 30 students.
Whew, all right. 120 students. So maybe let's start there. About my research methods classes have 18. Maybe this is a plug for when you're done with graduate school to work at a more teaching-focused liberal arts college. Yeah, it's very different, 120 versus 18. So what were your kind of responsibilities before things started? How did those shift? Were you just answering thousands of emails, as I might predict 120 students would generate? Yeah, just give us a little background.
Yeah, so my role was mostly helping grading exams and things like that. The instructor for the class was very interested in not having multiple choice questions, because of course it's a research methods class and it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So she wanted the students to be very to explain as much as they could how whatever they understood from articles and things like that were covered for the exam. So it was a quick shift. The instructor for the class tried to coordinate with me. She tried to ask for my opinion about everything she could think of, like, what do you think about doing the exam this way? I'm thinking about pre-recording the lectures, but maybe I will just do live stream and then record those for those that cannot join the live stream at the specific time, things like that. It was pretty intense. Most of the work was done by the instructor, and she was working nonstop trying to put together the class in a way that the students could still learn as much as possible from research methods, since it's, as you know, a class that is pre-required for a lot of psychology classes. So it was it was pretty important for us to have them still get as much as possible from the class and not miss material that they might need for future classes.
All right, so now that you sort of witnessed that, so it sounds like your sort of TA load didn't also go up exponentially, which I think is a heartening story to hear. I was worried that, the answer was going to be, I was working on exams and, now I need to spend what's supposed to only be 20 hours a week, but turned out to be 50,
so my appointment was for 10 hours a week. So it was a half appointment. That's why I wasn't that involved in the teaching, but the exams were a lot. So it was a lot of, like I said, short. Well, we still didn't have multiple choice for the exams, even though they were completed online. So I don't know what happened, but the students their answers to questions were essays, were 700 and something words long for one question. And well, there are 100 and something students. So it was a lot more, but I don't think it was as bad for me as it was for the instructor. It was just a lot, and we survived it, right? It was
right. You made it.
It was at the end.
Yeah, and that is a good, just sort of framework, right? That is how, if we sort of think about, mentor-mentee relationships, or instructor and TA relationships, it should be the case that the instructor is, shouldering more of the workload. So maybe that's a nice place to kind of go in. I want to get to your summer class and kind of how you use that experience, maybe to make some choices. But I'd like to sort of pause on that and maybe move just for a couple minutes, sort of talk about kind of what this experience has been like as a graduate student, to suddenly be in this more uncertain kind of space and framework for trying to do research. Did you move it online? How are you still having lab meetings? How's your stress level? Just so that maybe our listeners can get a sense about what would be helpful if they're working with grad students to be effective mentors at this time.
Yeah. So it has been, I guess this is the case for most people, right? It's pretty much an emotional roller coaster. Some days you feel okay, you feel productive, you feel like you can do stuff, and this is helping you. But others, you feel like, what am I doing? I had like an existential crisis at the very beginning. I saw the world going crazy, and I was like, what am I doing? What I'm doing is not helping anyone. It's not, I don't know, saving lives, It's not putting food in people's tables. I don't know. I had a very tough realization of how abstract our job is. It was a little bit weird. It didn't last that long, and I talked to my advisor about it, and she was very very supporting. She tried to listen to me, and she tried to remind me that maybe my job right now was to distract the participants from the world and allowing them to complete their degrees. So whenever this is over, that they can move on to the careers they want to pursue. So that put things in perspective. That allowed me to see things a little bit different. I still I miss the being in the office, of course. I'm not very extroverted, so the lack of social interaction at the beginning wasn't that bad. But when I'm writing, I usually go to my best friend's office and bounce out ideas. with them and talk about like what we want to do, what we, like just kind of brainstorming. Just talking about your research is easier than writing about it. So I miss that a lot, and it was not easy to go back to writing under these circumstances. But at some point, I started getting used to it, and I don't think it's a very good thing, but I started getting used to it. I started feeling a little bit more productive. The work was distracting me. I stopped watching the news completely. It was a lot of mental health issues that just sparked. And so I was very concerned about how that was affecting my RAs, my research assistants. So I tried to reach out to them and talk to them, see how they were doing, how their classes were going. For the most part, they were doing okay. Some were very overwhelmed because they felt like there was a lot of material that wanted to be introduced in a short period of time. And we had lost a week. So some instructors still wanted to teach the whole material and they were having a hard time. So I was making some mental notes about those things to try not to do that to my students this summer.
Yeah, those are really nice points, right? That we have to sort of take care of who we are as people first, right? And as a cognitive, psychologist in training, you kind of recognize that this idea that you can just cram more in when time is shrunk, that is a leg up that you have for like how you can help, right? Understanding how people think. And if my, Googling of you is right, like understanding language, I think those are really strong skills that we can use right now. And we know each other a bit from the Psychonomic Society, who's also been trying to use some of this behavioral science work to encourage behavior. So yeah, I get that instinct a little bit of like, but wait, I'm, teaching methods or studying memory illusions. But yeah, that's great that your advisor could sort of help you kind of pull back and think about things. So let's talk a little bit about that summer cognitive class. Have you gotten to teach this class before, or is it a fresh prep and a fresh way of teaching?
Well, this is the very first time I teach cognitive psychology. I was very excited when I got the assignment because I had taught introduction to psychology, and I loved it. I love teaching, so I was very excited to start this summer. I have this weird thing that I feel like I love my students even before getting to know them. I was super excited. And then they told us that we needed to move to online teaching, and I started freaking out. It's not the same thing, right? The material is a little bit more difficult than introduction to psychology. So for me, I was hoping to have their faces tell me whether the concept was understood or whether they still needed a better explanation or a different explanation. So I rely a lot on their gestures, the cues that they give me with their bodies. So not having that when you're teaching, I found it a little bit weird. I don't know how to explain it. I kind of felt like YouTube blogger or something. I realized I don't have that skill. I'm not meant to do this online, but my students so far have been very receptive. They've been very willing to share their concerns. So before the class started, I sent them a survey to ask them for input about how to structure my class. I wanted to have an idea of how flexible their schedules were, if they were still able to meet at the same time that the class was supposed to take place. I wanted to understand if they had access to a private room where they could be in the live stream, or if they didn't have access or good access to Wi-Fi or things like that. So I sent them the survey. They replied right away. Some of their concerns were that some of them were working at grocery stores, so they were putting extra hours. So they were concerned about how flexible I was going to be about the meeting times. Others said that their Wi-Fi wasn't reliable. Others said that there was not a problem, that they were ready to start. So it was nice to see how they were thinking about the class. And then I asked them to rate how they wanted the class delivered. So if they wanted to have live streams, or if they wanted to have required live streams, or if they wanted to have required live stream and some pre-recorded videos of the lectures, or if they wanted to have all the lectures pre-recorded. So most of them said they would like to have the lectures pre-recorded. So what I did was pre-recording the lectures, but I'm holding one live stream a week, so I can talk to them, and I can see, I can allow them to ask me questions if there are still questions that haven't been resolved by the lectures. I also have, as part of their requirements for the class, to have a discussion board. So they need to post questions that they still have about the lectures, and answer questions that other of the students ask. So they have to post a question and respond to another student's question. So I'm hoping that's going to help them create a little bit of a community, because I was very concerned about that part. Because we learn a lot from our peers, right? Like what makes sense to me might not make sense to my friend, or my classmate. So hearing that they have questions might make me rethink about the topic we're covering, and put things in perspective, allow learning to be more interactive. I don't know. That was a very long answer.
Well, it's a very long answer, but I think it's full of things that we, hear a lot from people either on Ask Psych Sessions or on the long form interview arm of the podcast here, which is that, you're doing a lot of the things that people recommend, right? Listening to your students, understanding who they are, allowing them to learn from each other as well as from you. So I don't know, to me, all of that really backs up what you said earlier, that you really love teaching. And I think that shows in the choices that you're making. So I don't know, I kind of makes me almost wish I was teaching this summer.
No, you don't.
Right. Don't worry. That door is closed, but it was, I appreciate so much you taking the time to chat. This was really great. And I hope that we can get together in person at a psychonomics meeting, or at maybe at a teaching conference soon. So take care, and good luck with your class.
Thank you so much.